So you're a manufacturer and someone's asked you what your product carbon footprint is. What do they mean by that? Well, let's start off straight away by taking a quick look at this isn't ISO 1440, but it's based on ISO 1440, which says, well, why are you doing it? What are you trying to achieve? If you've got a client who's just asking vague questions, what's your product footprint? You're going to approach it and choose one of these 5 different standards. These are the standards that the Innistic software supports. You're going to approach it differently to if they say, look, we're doing an IFRS audit. We need your stuff to be accurate, okay, like hyper accurate, in which case you probably go further down this accuracy tree here. These standards start from simpler through to more difficult, okay? So ISO 1440 says, well, what are you trying to achieve? And once you've done it, how are you going to use it? Now, once you know what standard, once you can answer those 2 things and you know what standard you're going to choose, and I'll come on to that in a second, that will tell you what data accuracy is required, how often it's going to need to be refreshed. Most standards say that they need to be refreshed once a year or once every 5 years, or if there's a material change, okay, the kind of basic rules. What quality of carbon factors you need. So the way the whole of this works is that you've got, for example, a kilogram of copper, you multiply that by a factor which says each kilogram of copper has got so much carbon in it, etc. Some carbon factors are better than others. So some say, well, it's roughly X, Y, Z. Some say, well, it's exactly that, but it depends on where you get it. If you get copper from here, it's different. So there's lots of different varieties of carbon factor. But once you know the standard, you'll know which carbon factor quality is required. The other thing you'll know once you know the standard is, which sections can you skip. And if I just skip back in my sort of this, by the way, is from my book, Net Zero for Business, quick plug of book. I also presented this at one of the talks I gave. These components of a carbon footprint, of a life cycle assessment or product carbon footprint, whatever you want to call it, in this case, they mean the same thing for the purposes of this video. You can look at these stages. A is broadly manufacture, B is broadly use, C is broadly end of life, and D is recycling. So if you look here, once you know what's standard, you will know which bits you can miss out, if any. Generally, as a rule of thumb, EPDs have got all of them in. Sometimes they miss B and C. Most other standards concentrate on A. Some standards concentrate on A, i.e. the manufacturing, and D, the recycling. Okay, and to me, that's quite a sensible approach for a lot of cases. Okay, so you know which standard you're going to choose because you know why people are asking this question, what they're going to do with the data. You know which components you need to include. How do you go about choosing a standard? Well, Innistic supports 5 standards. If we just ping into this kind of summary table I've done for you here. The basic LCA is done with the International Product Carbon Association, and now I'm involved with that, cards on the table, and I'm also involved with the Product Carbon Declaration standard down here, the PCDs. So that out of the way, basic LCA uses the IPCA database, and you just apply the principles of ISO 1444. You don't actually do ISO 1444, you just use the principles of it, because it's got no verification, no publication, no one is really going to check it except for you and maybe someone who's interested in looking over your shoulder. But generally it's a self-certification along the lines of, this is a rough idea. It's a rough and ready sort of standard. Normally these things, they're good. Basic LCA, 10 minutes tops, very quick to do, but it only looks at the basic materials, doesn't take any sort of transportation, use, disposal, recycling into consideration. Okay, the next 2, TM65 basic, TM65 medium, are by CIBSE, the Chartered Institute of Building Services Engineers, I think. Pretty sure of that, but I think that's what it is. They've got basic and medium, 2 different ones, and they differ in that the medium is a little bit more complex in the A1, the manufacture stage, but they start bringing in disposal and recycling, whereas the basic tends to avoid those things. Really, it's quite simple. However, the CIBSE stuff is only good for plumbing and electrical products, so if you're not into kind of those things, then it's not for you. Next one up is PCDs, Product Carbon Declarations, and the standard R1. R1 is a simple to use standard, and the IPCA product category rules are very straightforward. They're very simplistic. They're very simple to apply. Most of them fit on one side of A4, for example. It's very easy to do. And the data we use is the IPCA data. Then PCDs have got the manufacture component in, so they look at what's in your product and how it's produced. They have got the transport and they have got recycling, but they don't address the use or the disposal of the product. Okay, that's not in scope for R1. They are verified. To be actually honest, they can be verified. They don't have to be verified. But the verification is much, much simpler than the next level up for EPDs, which I'll talk about in a second. And they are published on the PCA database, a website rather. So once you've done them, they are published, so they're centrally available. The next level up is the big boy, it's the EPDs. To do an EPD, if you do it in less than 3 months, let me know and I will buy you a cup of coffee. Okay, this is where he says his bank balance gets drained with everybody saying, "Oh, I did it." Well, I've never seen one in less than 3 months. Typically 6 months is a good sort of time frame for an EPD. Normal cost about £10,000-15,000, that sort of cost. It can be quite pricey and they're a lot of work. EPDs follow 1440 and 1444. R1 makes reference to these standards as well. So 1440, 1444 are common to both PCDs and EPDs. But EPDs follow 15804, which is quite a detailed standard. Well, it is a detailed standard. And you need a product category rule for each of the products that you do. And those ISO product category rules are ISO standards in their own right. They are quite heavy, 20-30 pages. You do need data which is approved for use with EPDs. Anistic it's got the EcoInvent database built in. It's a good database, good quality data, and you can use it for production of EPDs. EPDs have all of the components in. Typically, sometimes your product category rule says you can omit things, and it's often, I've often seen use and disposal being omitted from the EPD sort of requirements. And as I say, your ISO product category rule down here will say, yeah, you're allowed to miss B and C out if you want to. They are externally published and verified. Typical cost for verification, £2,500 to £5,000. Typical length that it takes a verifier to do, months. You know, I would say weeks. I mean, I've one verifier said to me, I'll turn it around in 2 weeks. So I've not seen it. Good. If you can do that, good luck to you. I've not seen it. But they're it's quite an involved process, the verification, and the publication is like it's 1,000 or so to set up, and then 1,000 or so per year, depending on the size of your company. The bigger your company, the more you pay. Okay, so that's how you go about choosing the standard. I'll run through that again for you very briefly, just as a recap. Number one, what are you trying to achieve? Number two, how are you going to be using it? So ask your client why they want this stuff, what they're going to do with it. That will help you decide on which standard to choose. As I say, there's an overview of the standards that are built into the Anistic software. And, you know, AI, by the way, is making a lot of these things so much easier. But, you know, choose the standard. That will tell you which bits you can miss out. You remember these components here. And it will tell you how often it needs to be refreshed, the accuracy and the factors there. So there you go. That's my whistle-stop tour of how to choose a product carbon footprint or an LCA standard. So I thought I'd show you what they actually look like in practice, how you load them into the software and how you get the carbon footprint of your product using the Anistic platform. So first off, if we look at the first level of products, and today I can show you the first three. I can't show you PCDs yet, they're a bit new. And the software isn't really at the point where I can just show you the PCDs yet, but they're somewhere in between TM65 medium and the EPD level. They kind of sit in that mid band, okay? But if we go into products, this is where the first level is the easiest level. And you can see if I go into glass wine bottle, if you've been following the channel, you know I like a drop of wine or two. It's certainly a hobby of mine. But here you've got the basic sort of LCA. There's not a lot to it. You've basically got the name, some sort of reference, what the measurement is, each kilogram per ton per litre, etc. This is the field that's worked out for you. And then here's the components that go into it. So here's where you type in what's in your product. So say, for example, it's steel. You've got lots of different steels in there, and you can just choose which one you want, how much of it is in there, etc., and add it in. So that's your basic product carbon footprint, very, very simple. Next level up is the TM65. This is the level 2. And if we have a look in here, you've got a few things going on. You've got the top description of the product, really. That's really just for you more than anything else, so you know what it is. Down here, you've got the full LCA. But as I say, with TM65, you tend to focus on A1 more than anything else. What's in the material, that will pull up the same kind of list that we had before, but just from the TM65 material list. So it's a different list of materials. And down here, you've got the basic inputs for your TM65. Now notice, as I say, it's largely with plumbing, electrical, aircon, stuff like that. And so down here, you've got refrigerants, you've got what type of product it is. And these are the things you really should be thinking about with TM65s. If you're not doing this sort of stuff, it's probably not for you, okay? And TM65 is pretty basic. So, you know, it's not sort of rigorous in the slightest. But that's your basic inputs to TM65. Then if you look up here to the view report, you can see your TM65 report here. This is the authorized format of it with all of the outputs. etc., etc., listed down there. Okay, so that's TM65. Pretty quick. I mean, you know, they don't take long to do at all. The next one up, TM65, again, quick to do, but you'll notice with the TM65, same kind of stuff at the top, same life cycle assessment components down here, same raw material list here, but down here, there's a lot more going on down here in terms of the processing. So you've got transport in here, you've got manufacture process, you've got disposal, and you know, it knows, CIBSE knows. CIBSE is pretty, I like CIBSE, it's a good organization, but it knows about these sorts of things. So it's just make things a bit easier for you in terms of processing the things through for these products here. Okay, and I'll do another video on TM65s for you, but you know, go into a bit more detail about how you do it in, you know, go through it step by step. But that's the basics. And when we view the report, they're again, same as before, lots of the same things in there, but there's more of it, okay? And it is more detailed and it is more accurate. So that's the TM65 medium. I don't know why they haven't got advanced. You've got TM65 basic, TM65 medium. Makes you think there's an advanced lurking in the wind. Next level up is the EPD, and this is the full, you know, ISO 15804, 14040, 14044 standard stuff at the top here. Summary of emissions, all the life cycle calculation components down here. If we click in here, you've got the actual manufacture components, and to add new components in, you know, you can just do a search on steel in here. Different database. This is using the Eco Event database. So it is more complex. I'm not going to sort of kid you, but it's doable. You know, especially with the kind of the filtering system. We put a lot of time into making this filtering system useful, and you know, it's pretty easy to get going with this. But there is more in it, you know, and there's more categories by a long shot. And when you go back to it, you fill in all the categories there. You do the similar things for all of the other things down here, and each one of these has kind of custom input screens. And at the end, you can view your report, and you notice the report's got a lot more stuff in it. You know, significantly more. It's not just carbon anymore. We've got all these freshwater, marine, terrestrial pollutions going in there, smog, etc. Water deprivation. So there's a lot of stuff going on in there, but these are the tables you need for a full sort of industrial grade LCA. I think there's a very good place for PCDs. That's why I'm very happy about the PCD standard. And, you know, I'll do another video on PCDs for you, but because sometimes what you've just seen can be a bit overkill. You know, do you really want to know the eutrophication potential of your product? I would say that majority of people don't even know what it means, let alone how to interpret those numbers. So PCD kind of fills that slot in between, and I'll do a separate video on that for you so you can look at that, okay? If you need any help with any of that, please get in contact. You know, we're here. My mission is to help companies lower their carbon footprint. That's why I'm here. That's why the entire Anistic exists. And if we can help you in any way with any sort of carbon accounting, life cycle assessment, product carbon footprint, whatever it's going to be, let us know and we'll be delighted to help. All right. Thanks a bunch. See you next time.